The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, who's in town for Lindsey Graham's memorial service, which was so powerful today at the National Cathedral there in Washington. I've been there many times for a lot of different services. And today, just watching today, what a spectacular and powerful tribute to Lindsey Graham. And in the audience was Zelensky and also Netanyahu and others. And Netanyahu afterwards saying that the relationship with him and President Trump is like a wall of granite, that it is strong, it is solid, and it is unbreakable. And, of course, this comes with the battle for Iran still underway and these surprise attacks that took place just a few hours ago. Luckily, all of them intercepted. And meantime, President Trump was there at the ceremony. He gave the eulogy. And, boy, it was so powerful because he also talked about Lindsey Graham. I love Lindsey Graham. I knew Lindsey, the great senator from the University of South Carolina, my alma mater. And Lindsey Graham was always funny. He was always engaging. He was always great. Whenever I remember one time I had an event on Capitol Hill, and it was a charity event. And I called Lindsey and I said, Senator, could you come on by? Could you swing on by? And I think about 5 minutes later, he's like, I'm coming. I'm dropping everything. I'm rearranging everything. If it's important to you, it's a great charity. I'm coming. That was the kind of guy he was. Funny, quippy, dedicated, just a great, great man. And this is a huge loss for America and those who fight for freedom around the globe. He was the best ally of Israel, the best ally of Ukraine, the best ally of America, the best ally of President Trump, and a great and treasured friend. And here is President Trump talking about Lindsey Graham today, describing just his wit and his determination. It was really beautiful.
Yet, while he was always quick to laugh, and no one ever doubted the gravity of his mission, above all, Lindsey Graham believed in a strong America. He wanted a strong America. He had unwavering faith in the righteousness of American power and prayer, and he was extremely hawkish. I will tell you, he never saw a war that he didn't like. Only his true friends would understand that, but he wanted it for the good of our country. He felt in his bones that our destiny is to win, and that his job was to do everything he could to ensure our enemies would lose. It was this conviction that led him to serve 33 years in uniform in the Air Force and Air Force Reserves and Air National Guard, even while he was in office. And it was this conviction that took him as a senator to almost every country on earth, confronting America's adversaries and standing up for America's friends. He had tremendous friendships all over the world. It's a testament to his towering impact that among those mourning him here today are leaders, presidents, prime ministers from all over the globe. They're sitting right here before you.
And boy, it was a powerful testament. By the way, tomorrow, Anthony Fauci is going to be testifying. Let's see what he says, because these new diaries that have come out, the details in his massive 1,100-page diary, essentially are showing a very different picture than what he told the public. It is clear that in those diaries, Anthony Fauci, to me, it seems like he was just obsessed with his own fame. Talks about butt dialing, Barbara Streisand, being on the Sexiest Man Alive cover, all this other stuff. I mean, it really is extraordinary. And what a difference of what he's saying in that diary about the origins of Wuhan. We all knew it wasn't the wet lab, that it wasn't the wet market, that it was the Wuhan lab rather down the street. And even in his own diaries, he's kind of saying, no, it didn't originate there in the lab. So where did it originate? You clearly are telling a very different story than what you said publicly. So it's going to be interesting to see what Rand Paul and Ron Johnson and those guys, they can't wait to get their hands on Fauci tomorrow. Let's see if he takes the fifth or what he does. But that guy caused enormous damage, not just to America, but to the world. And in the meantime, get this, ABC, NBC, PBS ignore totally the Fauci diary. They're not even covering it. They don't even acknowledge this diary that shows clear contradictions from what he was saying publicly. He wrote in his own diary, "Hey, dear diary, I don't think it started at the animal market." And then goes on TV saying, well, it looks like it started at the wet market up the street. Somehow, I think the American public and the world deserves the truth. Meantime, also, President Trump, as we were talking about him today, President Trump also trying to weigh what to do next with Iran. Clearly, he met with Netanyahu today and talked a lot about that. Apparently, they also talked about Pickaxe Mountain, where some of the nuclear centrifuges may have been moved. That clearly is on the target list. But here's President Trump, because earlier today he was on Fox News and he said, I'm trying to figure out, do we hit the bridges? Do we hit the power plants? What impact would that have on the good civilians, those heroic protesters there in Iran? Take a listen.
But I have some Republicans said, well, why don't we hit them harder? So, it's like at some point. So you have a lot of competing factions. You have a group of people that wanted to be obliterated in the truest sense of the word. Then you have a group that says, this is actually a good time to make a deal for them. If they don't make a deal, then I go back and I finish the job. But that's going to take them forever to rebuild. Already, it'll take them many years to ever rebuild. And I go back and finish up the job, as some people would like, with the bridges, with the very easy. I could take out most of their bridges in less than an hour. Less than an hour. But, it takes them 10 years to build a bridge. Bridges take the longest, and power plants are second. I can knock out the power plants. Within one day, all of their power plants would be gone. And I let them know that, with negotiations. I said, look, people want me to do that. I think I get almost the same thing out of it as doing it. But the problem is they'll never be able to, I think about 91 million people without power, without bridges, would have to live. And it's a very, very delicate balance. Yeah. So I think we have a very strong position right now. They know I'm going to do that if they don't make a deal. The bridges are going to be gone. Literally in less than, I would say in 2 hours, most of the bridges, the major bridges will all be gone. And the power plants in one day. And, if I can avoid doing that, I'd like to do that. The hardest thing to build is a power plant. The longest thing to build is a bridge. Takes a long time to rebuild and build bridges. And that's what I used to do for a living, construction. It takes years to build these things. And, and knock them out in 1 hour, and it takes many years. It really decimates a country. So those are the two big things. And then there's always the desalinization plants. And who am I hurting there? I'm hurting the people. So I'm not looking to do that. I just want, very simply, they cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. And they've agreed to that, essentially. We have to get them to, make it formal. Right. But they've agreed to it.
How do you?
Well, we'll see. Because obviously, as we just mentioned, the new news tonight was that the IRGC fired ballistic missiles in what they said was, quote, a surprise attack. Probably also wanted to time it, no doubt, with the fact that President Trump was meeting with Netanyahu, and they wanted to do an attack on a day like today to send a message to President Trump. So the IRGC still has these ballistic missiles. Luckily, again, they were intercepted, but still, they are clearly trying to still attack U.S. interests in Jordan and to penetrate. And then there's new reports, too, that Russia is supplying intel, Russia and China supplying satellite intelligence. So the Iranians have a better judge of sort of where to hit on a U.S. base or maybe a CIA dark site. All of that is supposed to be confidential information. And somehow the Russians and Chinese have some of the satellite information cooperating with Iran. Also, there's this Russian ship that Zelensky located in the Caspian Sea that he says was bound for Iran with weapons. So maybe Russia and Iran are playing much bigger roles than we even realize. Meantime, there's a war within the Democratic Party. We were talking about this earlier here on the Rita Cosby Show. And this is Maine Senate candidate. This is the new guy who replaced Graham Plattner. And it's Troy Jackson. This guy is a former Maine Senate president. And it's like he's like Graham Plattner 2.0, because Graham Plattner, remember, was the oyster guy. His only client was his mother, and nobody had ever heard of an oyster farmer in Maine. That's a whole other story. This guy is a logger. I'm not sure if his mother is the only client. We'll find out. But actually, he starts singing the praises of Graham Plattner. He's filling Plattner with platitudes. You've got to be kidding me. Listen to this guy. So much for separating from sleazebag Plattner.
Yeah, there's no doubt Graham, did a great job as far as getting people going. Very articulate, better than I am at that. But, what I've been doing, all through this is trying to make sure that people understand that, it's about the movement. It's about the issues. I mean, this is way bigger than any one person, bigger than Graham, certainly bigger than me. We have a chance right now because people are coming together like I've never seen before. And, when I worked for Bernie in 2016, that was the most incredible campaign that, I've ever been around. This is way bigger. I mean, people are coming out, like crazy because they are upset.
There's no doubt that Graham did a great job. Graham Plattner did a great job. That automatically should disqualify this guy. He's clearly trying to appeal to Graham Plattner's voters. And what? The guy has a moral compass of 0 if he thinks that Graham Plattner did a good job. The sleazebag with the Nazi tattoo, the guy who's accused of assault and also rape. But boy, he did a great job, right, Troy Jackson? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And everybody, you are listening to the Rita Cosby Show. Let's go to Judith in Brooklyn on line 4. Go ahead, Judith.
Hi, Rita. Getting early to Michael Cohen and that whole thing that you had with him. So I've got a few questions. Number one, are there any Muslims on the second home tax hit list? I'm so curious if there are Muslims on that list. For some odd reason, I bet you they have everyone there but Muslims on.
You know what? I'm going to take a look at that because I don't know the answer to that. That's a great question. I will take a look. Thank you.
And thank you also. And the follow-up, I have to laugh and look at the contrast. Look at what they're asking of Michael and other people like him with his own house and ask him all these questions and the ID, whatever. I thought it's racist to ask for an ID. They're fighting for the SAFE Act. But take a look at Mikey Sherrill. She has refused to reveal over 6,000, I don't know, it's between 6,000 and 7,000 illegal voters in New Jersey. She refuses to reveal them and keep their privacy from the federal government. And I tell you something, is that not treasonous? I don't even understand how she could even do something like that.
And you know what's interesting in that case, Judith, too, where there are these voters who should not have voted and should not have been on the voter roll. There's a lot of mixed feelings about this and mixed information about it because the report was that there was some computer glitch, and that's what at least Cheryl's department was sort of alleging that it was, the governor there. And then there are people who came out and said, no, the company says there was no computer glitch. So what happened? And we still don't have the real story as why she admitted it now. Because remember, it happened a couple of years ago. Why did she feel compelled to share it now? What is she preempting? That's the question, Judith.
Well, it's more than that. She knows that it was illegal, and she doesn't want to give over their information.
No, I hear you what you're saying. I'm just trying to give the backstory as to even how it was created. But you're right. She should be handing it over 100%. Yeah. I agree with you on that part.
Yeah, she's I feel it's almost like treasonous. What is she doing over here? I mean, my goodness. Also, Robert called, and I have to add, I was speaking to someone, and they said, I didn't know that. In the Quran, they say all infidels, they are allowed to kill infidels, but the only way they let them live is they basically tax them to death if they tax them highly. So take a look. Mandami is doing exactly Sharia law. He's doing this is the start. Sharia law, where he's going to now tax them like crazy. What are they taxing now, 50% on the second home?
Yeah, it's a whopper. It is a whopper. It's a whopper. You know what? That's interesting. I'm going to start. First of all, I am going to look at that list like you said. We'll keep pressing Mikey Sherrill to give out those names because you're right. Why is she protective of those? And yet they're doxing, successful people in New York who hire a lot of people, but they are punishing them by harassing them and doxing them publicly. It's a disgrace. And I'm also going to try to find out if there's any Muslims on that list. That's an interesting question, Judith, that we should all know the answer to. And I'm going to try to get that for you soon. Judith, thank you. Always great to hear from you. 1-800-848-9222. And everybody, we're going to continue right after the break here on The Rita Cosby Show.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is The Rita Cosby Show.
And coming up on The Rita Cosby Show, we're going to play an interview that we did earlier that's so powerful, that talks about some of the questionable votes that happened in the last mayoral election. It is mind-blowing, and we are talking thousands upon thousands that may have made the difference as to where maybe Mayor Mondani might not have been elected, according to this individual. You got to see it. It's mind-blowing. Who knows, but we'll see what the information is and judge it for yourself. It's an election integrity expert, and we'll get into that. Let's go to Linda in New Jersey real quick on line 4. Go ahead, Linda.
Hi, Rita. I would like to say a lot of people, thousands of people, have signed petitions for Mayor Mondani not to be at the 9/11 memorial ceremony. But he says he's going anyway. He's well aware of it, but he's going anyway. And I would like to know, is he there to be sincere, or is he there to show us that they won?
That's a powerful statement, Linda. And you're right. I think he wants to go. I think he's arrogant enough to go. And I think it's sad. He should be listening to the families. And I understand it's 30,000 people have signed that petition.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on.
And let's continue with your calls. Let's go to Anna in Staten Island, line 1. Go ahead, Anna. You're here on the Rita Cosby Show.
Hi, Rita. How are you?
I'm good. What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about Fauci. I can't get it out of my mind. So 2017, if you Google it, or everybody will Google it, he said Trump will definitely be hit with a pandemic. That was 2017. As soon as you Google that, the date and the what he said, it will come right up. And now I want to know.
Now, do you believe? What do you believe? He was orchestrating something? Is that what you think, Anna?
Yes. I'm thinking that maybe he already knew something, because if you remember the pandemic, what happened? They started saying it was already before that, the 2019. They already have seen cases of it and all of that. Remember the beginning when they started saying all that?
Yes.
It was before. It was 2019.
Well, and listen, what I will say is that clearly he was aware of this gain of function research, which had been going on for years, Anna. So, I mean, you have to wonder, what did he know just regarding the gain of function practices, and the fact that he never, from what we've heard, never told the White House that he was aware of this gain of function research. It just happened to be done at the Wuhan lab, which was right down the street from the wet market. I mean, there's some interesting stuff. Let's see what happens tomorrow, Anna. I think it's going to be a biggie. Let's see. Let's go to Al in Yonkers on line 4. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, hi, Rita. I think Rogers, the Republican candidate who's doing it again running, has a chance in Michigan, but he's got some negatives against him. Number one, he has to run against the national trend of the administration's not decisive how we're going to deal with Iran, number one. Number two, the unpopularity of the big, beautiful bill, which made no concessions on premiums, and it's a big problem for working class people, and the affordability. So the problem is because the Republicans, and I'm a Republican, didn't make any concessions at all. I think it's going to hurt them come November. And Blakeman also has the serious problem. But
Al, if you look at these folks, I mean, they're so extreme, and particularly, let's get to Michigan because you brought that up. El Sayed, there's a good chance it's going to be an El Sayed Mike Rogers race. We'll see. Maybe the Haley Stevens might pull it out now that she has the governor's endorsement there. But that guy is nuts. Open the prisons, open the abolish ICE. You could run that ad all day long. And some of the latest polls are showing that will help Mike Rogers. He's reasonable. He's law enforcement. It's common sense, clearly, versus crazy there. And that's where I think it's going to fall in that one. Al, on the other stuff, to be continued. In the meantime, guys, I wanted to play this for you because this was blockbuster. Earlier today, we talked to Marley Hornick. She's the founder of Real America Vote and NY Citizens Audit. And what she says she learned about the New York City mayor's race is blockbuster. Take a listen. Boy, this looks like a bombshell, guys. Joining us now is the founder of Real America Vote and New York Citizens Audit. And it appears that there could be a chance that there were fraudulent votes cast in the New York City mayoral. That's one of the allegations, one of the things looking into. And the big question is, what does that mean about the election of Mayor Zoran Mamdani? Well, to describe what she has uncovered is Marley Hornick. Again, she's founder of Real America Vote and New York Citizens Audit. What did you discover? Because you went through a whole bunch, I think about 1 million, right, of the votes.
Well, thank you so much for having me on to talk about this critical study. We discovered, because you see, the New York City and the New York State boards of elections are required under the first law we ever passed, the United States Constitution, to qualify every voter according to law. So our audit just asked a question: did they qualify the voters before registering them and counting their votes? And we discovered, using synthetic identity fraud prevention tools, commercial tools, we discovered that 7% of the voters don't exist. 6% of the voters have fake Social Security numbers, according to the SSA website, and 10% of the voters did not live in New York City anytime during 2025. So that's 23% of the vote is flagrantly unqualified, which is a total failure. It's a failure of the New York City and the New York State boards of elections to uphold a simple promise ratified in 1789. I call it the original SAVE Act.
Now, Marla, I have a whole bunch of questions for you. First question is, why did you get access to this? Is this something that other people can get access to? And does the Board of Election know this?
Well, we just asked the Board of Elections through the legal process for copies of the voter rolls and the voter history. So we used their official records. We used the way that they define the voters, the names, the dates of birth, and the voting addresses. And then we work with qualified personnel who look these up in these fraud prevention tools. It's what banks use to do know your customer studies, right? So this is like a know your voter. And those tools are restricted to people who are licensed. So I didn't look at the actual records. The company we worked with, they looked at the records. We did deep verification on our questions. Did they exist? Did they have a real Social Security number? And did they live in New York City? Simple. So that's how we found this out.
And what about the reaction to this? Does the Board of Elections know? What about some of the candidates?
Well, where we brought it immediately, because I've been working for over a year with John Sarcone, a true patriot, the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of New York. And that's where I brought every single piece of this data. Actually, New York Citizens Audit has been for 5 years asking the boards of elections to fix these problems. And they retaliated against us. They investigated us under the KKK Act with Letitia James. That was 2 years lost on this issue. So at that point, I just turned it all over for investigation and potential prosecution.
So are you saying that the U.S. Attorney in the Northern District has this?
Exactly. Yep. And the Albany FBI office. And you have to remember why they have jurisdiction was because every single ballot for the New York City mayoral election was also a ballot for the statewide ballot initiative, Proposition 1. So every vote counted in New York City was also counted in Albany by the New York State Board of Elections. And it's a fraud. They're not allowed to count votes from voters they haven't qualified. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Was there any federal people running at the same time so it could become a federal item?
Well, there were not federal candidates on the ballot, but there's two ways that it is a federal item, John, and I appreciate that question. That's very astute. First of all, when the right to vote, which is defined by Congress to include the right to have your vote counted in the appropriate totals of votes cast, when that is infringed upon in any way, it's a federal issue. And second of all, because there was a statewide ballot initiative, you also get immediate access or immediate justice under the Voting Rights Act, because that's part of the specific language in that statute.
Let's go to Craig Eaton here.
Issue.
I was the Brooklyn chairman.
You got to turn your mic on.
I was the Brooklyn chairman here for 12, 13 years, and we would see every cycle, whether it was city or state, federal elections. We saw fraud in the voting booths, in the polls. We have dead people voting every year, and some dead people have voted for more than 5 or 6 years. There was a lawsuit that was filed. There was an investigation last year by the feds and the Brooklyn district attorney because of all the fraud in Brooklyn in a city council race. Something needs to be done. And the first thing I think we need to do is we need to get photo ID. You need photo ID before you vote.
Right. Well, the issue is if they don't want to use photo ID, if they want to take everyone's word for it at the polls, then they go to jail because that's not an effective means of qualifying voters. It doesn't meet the standard they promised they would do in the United States Constitution. Sentence number 2, literally the first thing the founders put in when they were writing this out with a quill pen, right? So I agree. There's tons of fraud. We always hear the stories. You've seen the stories. This makes it very, very simple because that kind of stuff is really hard to prove. It's really hard to prosecute. It's hard to figure out who was behind it. But this is very simple. New York State and these top-level election officials are responsible to that guarantee, and they failed. And that's a crime in this country.
Marty, I got to ask some obvious question. I'm not an attorney, so I'm just asking this as a layperson. When I hear this, the question is, can there be any repercussions? Because if indeed, and then the other question is, what about the other 1.2 million? What about those? I mean, I would assume, do you have access to the rest of them? Because maybe this is the tip of the iceberg. And then can there be anything retroactive? I mean, if it turns out that X amount of people should not have voted, is there a repercussion?
Right. There are repercussions, Rita. And multiple times in our history, about at least 5 times, the United States Supreme Court has upheld criminal conviction for election officials who certified false tallies. So that's actually the method. And think about it for a second. In life, there's 2 ways to come by things. You can work for them or you can steal them. And the only way to keep people from stealing is to make it more painful than working. And that's why the law works this way. The United States guarantees the sovereignty of the citizens over the law. Period. End of story.
Hey, Marley,
if
can
the
I
election officials?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Michael Cohen.
Hey, Marley, can I just ask you a quick question? When we were talking about federal, I apologize. I thought you were finished, but when we're going back to federal, can we not turn around and maybe think a little bit out of the box? What if hypothetically people voted by mail? Doesn't that turn it into a federal issue?
It's already a federal issue when the state doesn't qualify the voters. So it doesn't matter how the ballot comes in. If they don't know that ballot came from a qualified voter, then accepting that ballot and counting it is fraud.
Is that postal fraud?
Which is federal.
No, it's election misconduct.
Craig Eaton, you're a lawyer.
I mean, mailing a fraudulent ballot. I mean, people were getting ballots mailed to them for people who died years ago, and they were filling out those ballots and then mailing those ballots in. I mean, that could be a federal offense.
That's a separate fraud.
Yeah, that's a separate fraud.
That's a separate fraud from what Marley is talking about.
So let me ask you,
voter fraud. That's what we call voter fraud.
How do we prove? All right, two things. I'm going back to one other thing. Did the Board of Elections, did they know? Do we have proof somewhere that somebody knew they were fraudulent? And is there any way to track down who committed the fraud?
Boy, are you good. You're an honorary lawyer.
I'm an honorary lawyer.
Boy, are you good.
I love it.
She got the A+ in the blue book.
The fraud was ultimately the certifier. Whoever signed the document that said this is all on the up and up and we know everything that happened in this election and this is unequivocally the will of the citizens of New York City has been registered here, right? So that's who committed the fraud. And whether or not it was willful doesn't matter, according to a lawsuit from 1888 that the Supreme Court settled, where they said for election officials, failure to do a duty is a crime.
Marley, let me.
This is Judge Weinberg.
Let me broaden this discussion for you. I raised the question, which is, if this was a fraudulent election, how do we go to unwind it?
That's my question.
That's the $1 million. I don't think you can. It's already been certified. Well, certified with fraudulent documentation?
Right. If they, that's why she keeps going back, and I understand why you're going back, Marley, too, to why, if it was falsely certified.
It would have to be some kind of a...
No, but the question is we don't have... Look, what we don't have is we don't have recall elections in New York City. So what I'm saying to you is there a legal remedy, a judicial remedy to unwind that past election if there's documentation there's a fraudulent election?
So, Marley, is there?
Well, it's a really good question. It's never been done before. It would be called a fraud ab initio, right, Judge? And that's how you would get it. But actually, the only way that I'm aware of under New York law to remove Mamdani is for the governor to do that.
That's correct. That's correct. Not this governor.
So, never happened.
Not this governor.
Maybe, just maybe, if in fact that the fraud was demonstrated and she would be under so much pressure. It would be the fire under the backside, so significant.
I agree. If it can be clearly stated and shown.
You need a linkage between this illegal voting
and his
knowledge.
Yeah, his knowledge of it.
That's right.
Exactly. I mean, regardless, there should be some sort of
whether it's his knowledge or his operatives.
Right.
Some knowledge.
But there should be, even on the broader level, to Marley's point, if indeed there were people illegally, as you're saying, that improperly, and people knew about it or turned a blind eye to it, how is that an honest election? I mean, it's not.
By definition.
Right, and it still should come out. So,
Amen.
Marley, you got to get to the bottom of this with us. You've started it.
Keep us posted. We want to know what happens in the next million votes.
Yeah. Marley,
what I want to say is,
are you going through the next 1.2? Are you going through the next 1.2?
That depends on, we have a 501c3. It's a tax deductible donation. That depends on people listening. Because
where can they find out, Marley? Where can they find out about you?
realamerica.vote. And I just want to add, I appreciate all the time. This is great. I just want to add that in order to have a fair election in 2026, we have to keep going. We can't let up, because that's the only way. People have to know, first of all, that their vote is going to matter, and then they have to turn out. But they're not going to turn out if they don't think it doesn't make a difference. So we have to fix this and make sure they know that, so that we get a fair election in 2026 and we can fix this beautiful state. And we can send real representatives to the United States Congress from New York with pride.
Bravo. Well, Marley, thank you so much. Thank you for sounding the alarm. That is awesome. You got to come back on again soon. That was great, Marley. Very powerful stuff. Wow. I had to share that with you because she's claiming that they identified 230,000 illegal votes in the last mayoral elections, or Mamdani's 2025 election victory. And that's just half of them that she says she looked at. And of course, we'll keep you posted. That could be blockbuster, guys. We'll continue with your calls after the break. 1-800-848-9222. But first, support our heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And everybody, this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a very powerful story from Lehi, Utah, where Jim Slade, a decorated Vietnam veteran living in Lehi, was presented with a handmade quilt as an expression of gratitude for his great service. Quilts of Valor, which is a national private organization, makes individually designed quilts and presents them to great American veterans who qualify for this very patriotic and special award. Now, during the ceremony, Jim reminded all of those who were there, as he always does, that freedom is not free. And he says he was so proud to have served his country and fought in Vietnam. Jim's harrowing combat adventures as an Army Ranger in Vietnam, by the way, are highlighted as part of the 250-year commemoration of the founding of America. And after Jim returned from Vietnam, he also saw the need for a Vietnam War memorial at the Utah State Capitol. He worked tirelessly and with great tenacity and raised money for the memorial. So he continues to serve. And everybody, America's heroes need your help. Donate $11 a month to the incredible Tunnel to Towers Foundation. They do so much to honor America's heroes. Be sure to check them out. They are the best at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show. Breaking news.
And this just in, we told you about the surprise attacks by ballistic missiles from the IRGC, the Iranians, to U.S. targets in the Middle East. And now we're just getting word that the U.S. and Saudi Arabia launch joint strikes on Iran-aligned terrorists, sort of payback for the strikes that they did. So that's very interesting that American and Saudi fighter jets worked together and took out terror logistic and weapon site. That is very interesting. We know the UAE and Bahrain also did something similar. Things are certainly heating up in the Middle East, guys.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?